Hi, welcome to this Coding from Scratch video series. In this intro video, I'm going to tell you who I am, tell you a little bit about the project and why I'm doing it, and then go into some of the languages and tools that I'm using, and finally how to get the code and follow along. So first of all, about me, my name's David Mason. I'm a software engineer at Red Hat. So for the past 3 years, I've been working on a translation platform that's used by Red Hat's translators and community translators. Most of it's written in Java, but I'm interested in other languages more, in a range of languages. So in this project, I'm going to be using something else. The project that I'm describing here is basically to record a video series showing making a piece of software starting just from the idea. So I wanted to have something that shows the whole process, not just the final code or the final product, including all of the messiness and other stuff that goes along with that process. So why would I do this? Well, there are two main reasons. The first one is to show new programmers sort of one way that someone who's been programming for a while does things. It's obviously not the only way. There are lots of right ways to do it, and I'm certainly not claiming this way is the best, but it does show all of the tools and things that I use and how I put them together, which may help for someone who's quite new to things to see all of the different pieces they're learning, how they can be combined. The other big reason is because of a thing called Impostor Syndrome. So Imposter Syndrome is something that's a bit of a big problem in the software industry, in which someone who is quite competent feels like they're not really as competent as they appear to others. So they'll often feel like they've managed to fool everyone into thinking they know what they're doing, and that they might be discovered anytime, and that everyone else around them is more competent or knowledgeable or smarter than they are. So there are a number of reasons for this, which I won't go into at the moment, but one of those reasons is that people tend to see everyone else's finished product and then compare that to their own process when they're sort of only partway through, and that gives the false impression that other people have things a lot more together than you do. So I wanted to record this series to show the full process so that others would be able to see that maybe they're more competent than they think, because the final product out of this really won't, like the final piece of software that comes out of it won't show all of the iterations that it went through, whereas the video series will. A bit of info about Imposter Syndrome, and I'll put links to these in the video notes. So here's an article by Harriet. She wrote after CamJS a while ago as a graduate developer, that talks a bit about. Sorry, I think that might be the wrong video. There is a link. I haven't got the actual article here, but there is a blog post that she wrote a while ago about her experience with Imposter Syndrome. This Wikipedia article, and just another thing to illustrate how widespread it is in the industry. So this is Stack Overflow. It's a question and answer site that's used pretty much across the industry in IT, and has a reputation system. And this is John Skeet, who I haven't checked recently, but generally has the highest score on Stack Overflow because he knows a lot of stuff, answers a lot of questions, and is generally considered by others to be extremely competent here. And here is a podcast in which he talks to Scott Hanselman about feeling like a phony despite his competence. So this really goes all the way to the highest levels of the software industry. So now I'll go and talk about languages and tools. So I've chosen to use Node as the basis for this project. So the project itself is to make a command line program that lets you fetch little pieces of API documentation on the command line, which may be useful. It may not. Just seems like it's the kind of thing that that might be handy and might be a good project for someone who's fairly new to programming to see, because it shows API documentation as well as some of the process. So I've chosen Node because I'm interested in developing with Node. It's something that I'd like to move into full time at some point in the future if nothing more promising comes up. And I tend to use Sublime Text as my text editor because it works across a number of platforms and has enough features for my liking. I use Sublime Text 3, which is currently in beta. You can download it and use it without paying any money, but you can also then register it and it'll stop popping reminders up now and then. And the main documentation that I want to focus around is the Mozilla Developer Network documentation, basically because I think it's a very good example of very well written API documentation, and it covers pretty much the whole basic web platform. And then as a later extension, I want to get the Node.js API documentation working as well, just to make the program a little more complex once I've got the basics working. So how to get the code. I started here on the GitHub project page for the project. It's called what, as a mangling of the word what, and that is the command that you will use on the command line eventually to run this program. In the early videos I called it API doc fetcher, but then later on the name changes, so don't be confused by that. You can enter API doc fetcher in the URL and it will just automatically redirect to what because of how I renamed the program in GitHub. So this is the GitHub page. Git is a version control system. It's a way to keep track of source code changes as you write a program, and also a way to share that source code with other people and allow them to also see the history of changes. So by using a source control system like this, it means that you're more free to make changes without having to be afraid of breaking something, because you can always just roll back to a previous state of the source code. So this is the homepage of the project. I'll put a link in the notes to this. If you want to get the code, there are two different ways to do it. One way is to install Git on your computer, which it may already be installed if you have a Linux or Mac OS computer, operating system running on your computer. And then you can clone the URL using the clone the source code using the clone URL. The other way to do it is to go into the releases, and I've added tags at various points throughout the videos, just whenever I've committed some code to source. So for example, this tag video 02, that has all of the source code from the beginning up to video 02, and video 3 has the changes between 2 and 3. And so if you didn't want to install Git, for now you can just get a zip or a tar of the source code and then have that for reference while you watch. But that's not necessary to follow along with the videos. So as far as how to use Git to check out source code, that's beyond the scope of what I'm going to be describing here. But there are a lot of resources. So if you go to github.com and create an account on there, they tend to have a few good learning resources for getting started with that. Something else you can do is if you want to get a copy of this code and then mess around with it yourself and save your changes, you can fork the project, and that copies the project into your own GitHub account, and then you can store your changes in there, and potentially if you want to share those changes with this project, you can create a pull request for the project. I believe that's everything I wanted to cover for this video. So I hope you enjoy the video series and go ahead and watch those. Thanks for watching.